I got an idea. I was just thinking, and I want to run it by you guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Ego Thoughts is back. Now, I told you I'm going back to the basics. Ego Thoughts, where I give you my truest thoughts. Doesn't have to be something other people are talking about, reported, or articles about this. This is just what I want to talk about. And I think I have a pretty good idea for what Jaron Boots Ennis should do next. And I want you guys to hear it. So listen up. Again, at the end of this video, let me know how I did. Leave me a comment, that kind of thing below. Terrence Crawford just beat Israil Madrimov. He then became champion. I think the fight is safe to say the fight was tougher than expected. A lot of people didn't know who Madrimov is. And you have to understand, when I'm doing these videos and when I'm saying these things, I'm rarely talking about myself. I'm an advanced boxing watcher. I've been watching boxing. This, in fact, is my full-time job. I report on boxing. I've interviewed fighters. I went to fights. I studied this craft. You know what I mean? So when I'm saying these things, I'm not saying I didn't know who Israil Madrimov was, because, in fact, I've seen a bunch of his fights, like the Michelle Soro draw, the rematch, and he was on DAZN a couple of times, like the one with the controversial ending in the 12th round, right? So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, because some people, they don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm referring to the fight with Eric Walker, where Madrimov like clipped him and like almost ran over him. And I think the judge said the ref said he slipped or something like that. And it should have been a knockout win though, right? So I've been there. That's why I told you guys Madrimov was going to be a tougher fight and Crawford wasn't going to knock him out. But here's my idea. I don't want to waste any more of your time. I was thinking, Jaron Boots Ennis wants to fight Terrence Crawford. Crawford's team doesn't really sound keen. They don't seem really hip to the idea. However, Crawford just lost out on a big fight with Canelo Alvarez, the main fight he's been pushing, as Turkey, who's the advisor, Saudi Arabia advisor that's working with Terrence Crawford, and said he's going to give him a big fight. The only problem is the big fight that Crawford wants, you have Turkey, who's kind of taking shots at Canelo and waged war with him over social media. And the two are now kind of went back and forth and said their piece. So I find it funny that Crawford worked with PBC for the Errol Spence fight. Then that's his biggest payday, his biggest fight, right? At least to that point of his career. And the fight that garnered him the most notoriety. In fact, they did a parade for him for beating Errol Spence Jr. Phenomenal performance, amazing showing. And he didn't follow it up well, in my opinion. He fought an unknown guy. He waited a year, over a year from the Errol Spence fight to get back in the ring. You could have did a hometown fight at that point, fight another David Avanesian, because you had just beaten Errol Spence. Crawford's been fighting one time per year, right? So let's move this along. The bottom line is the Madrimov fight was tough. If anything, it kind of made Crawford look a bit more human, and it put Madrimov on the map, because many people they weren't familiar with his fight game. And I don't think he has anything to be ashamed about, right? Given that he only had 11 fights and 10 wins, I think he had a good showing against someone who's pound for pound like a Terrence Crawford. So the idea that I came up with is, boom, Israil Madrimov. I really feel the smart play here is Jaron Boots Ennis versus Madrimov. I can explain. Now, Jaron Ennis and his team and Eddie Hearn, they've said that Ennis wants to unify at welterweight, which is not the same division Madrimov's fighting. I don't think Madrimov can make 147 because he looks too big, and he came in at 154 flat versus Crawford. So I think it would behoove Jaron Ennis to move up to 154, fight Madrimov, and if you can snag a win here, and namely, it's a barometer fight because Madrimov was kind of put on the map with this Crawford fight, so people know he's actually a good fighter. Unfortunately for Crawford, Madrimov had never faced anyone that the world feels is elite. So going into the fight, this fight had really no buzz. Crawford's not a good showman, and he's not like one of the good characters in boxing that's going to hype the fight up or do a bunch of trash talking. So it was very dull in the buildup. And then again, considering the profile of Madrimov was this big going into the fight, people thought Crawford should and would slaughter a guy with only 11 fights when Crawford has 40 fights. So I think the smart play here is to have Jaron Boots Ennis fight Madrimov, because Jaron Ennis has stated that he would move up to 154 pounds for Crawford. Crawford's team is not showing the most interest in that fight. So the way you make noise is to fight a guy who didn't get demolished. He didn't get badly hurt or knocked down or knocked out. And if you can do better than Crawford, then I think that puts more pressure. And Jaron Boots Ennis also needs quality resume names. We know he's good. We know he's looking special. But, you know, he's fought David Avanesian and obscure names. He hasn't fought like a real champion. The other reason I am saying this is because Jaron Ennis is with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. Israil Madrimov is with Eddie Hearn, DAZN, and Matchroom. So they're all with the same people. This seems like something that would be easy to facilitate. And it would be a second opponent for Madrimov. Despite coming off of a loss, he learned a lot probably from the Crawford fight, because that was a high-level fight. And he would be fighting a guy coming in weight. So Jaron is already having issues fighting guys or finding guys to fight him at 47. And he's going to have more issues because Cody Crowley has eye injury, so that fight got canceled. He already beat David Avocado, right? And then you got Stanionis, who just did a new pack with PBC, and Mario Barrios might get a bigger fight like Stanionis or Pacquiao, something like that. And he's with PBC. He just became the WBC champion. So I don't see there being a real rush to work with DAZN when PBC has some in-house fights for Mario Barrios. That's just kind of how the game goes. So my fear is this: Jaron Ennis is far too talented to be on the sidelines, and he's young. And people said, oh, Jaron Ennis, he's going to finally get activity because he was with the late Cameron Duncan and got out of his contract when he passed, because there was basically in his contract was voided because they kind of defaulted and didn't give the promised amount of fights to Jaron Boots Ennis, right? So Jaron Ennis, the whole goal for leaving Showtime, that the fans said, was him teaming up with Eddie Hearn so he could make some more moves and get the show on the road and fight more frequently. So again, ego thoughts, what I'm thinking is the way Jaron Ennis can really make noise to possibly corner or capture the interest of Crawford, because let's be real, for the last 4 years or so, Terrence Bud Crawford's been fighting one time a year. So in my opinion, he's going to either fight a low-level person, maybe towards the end of the year, because he just fought Madrimov, or likely, I think Terrence Crawford does what he's been doing for the last several years, which is only one fight. So Crawford's not getting the Canelo fight next, and he'll either fight probably a low-level person or nobody for the remainder of the year. So that leaves plenty of time for Jaron Ennis to try to, you know, take a risk and see if he could do better with Madrimov. And again, me as a true boxing fan, I like the way Crawford fights. I like the way Ennis fights. I think it's a great fight. But that would be a statement right there. If Jaron Ennis can win versus Madrimov, when we just seen Crawford do the same thing, move up and win versus Madrimov, but many people believe it was more complicated than they expected. So if Jaron can get a stoppage or a knockdown, and I think it's real good, because at the end of the day, it's not like the way it would be stifled is if Madrimov looked horrible. He still looks capable. He didn't get like abused or anything like that. So I think that's a dangerous fight for Jaron Ennis, especially moving up in weight. And I think that would be the type of fight, because Jaron Ennis, look at him, he's big. So he's big. And I really don't see him getting much big fights at 154. So at 147, who's he going to fight at welterweight? I know he's saying he wants to unify, but again, PBC got a portion of those belts, and you just left Showtime, so you were already kind of closer to the PBC side of things, and now you're further away signing with Eddie Hearn. So I just don't see some of those fights being realistic. You know, it's similar to Crawford. Crawford, free agent, doesn't want to sign with PBC. They're going to take care of Fundora, Errol Spence, and Tim Tszю's going to fight the dude that just got a belt, right? They're going to worry about their priorities. So it leaves a void. And I think everybody should be making the best in-house fights that they can and not stifling careers. So to me, I truly think Jaron Ennis, keep in mind, Jaron Ennis's team, after the Madrimov fight, they said Boots would beat Madrimov. And I think they said he would beat him by stoppage. So I think that Eddie Hearn should pull the trigger on that and show us, because then that will answer so many questions as far as, is Jaron Ennis really ready for a Crawford? Crawford's team saying no, he's not ready. But then again, if you have that barometer test in Madrimov and he comes through it at his young age, then there's if he does it, because you have to understand Boots' style is different than Terrence Crawford, and he's pretty big and he has youth on his size in just a completely different style. He doesn't have the same level of experience as Crawford, but I think he would try to outdo Crawford and try to really make a statement. And if he's able to do that, then I think that would make more of a demand for the Crawford fight, because people gained a newfound respect after finally seeing Madrimov. For Crawford, like I said, unfortunately, people didn't even know who Madrimov was, but now he fought his elite name. He did pretty good. Some people even said he won. So let's see what's next. I really think 147, which is normally a glamour division, I don't see Boots getting really any big fights. Virgil Ortiz is at 54. Errol Spence moving up to 54. Fundora, Crawford, all at 54. Jermell Charlo. You know what I'm saying? Like the top kind of big fights right now are all at 54. So, you know, I know he's saying he want to unify, but my play is to fight Madrimov, see if you could do better. And of course, if you can't topple Madrimov, who's no longer a champion, coming off a loss, then you're probably not ready for Crawford either, right? Even though styles make fights and things like that. So I think that'll be a heck of a way to build up a potential Crawford Boots for Riyadh season, if that can happen. Because like I said, it's not likely that Crawford is going to fight, in my opinion, the rest of this year. So Boots needs to not follow that same trend. Crawford is in a different space. He's been fighting longer. He's about to be 37. Boots is young, and, you know, he only went a couple rounds, didn't really get hurt or anything versus Avanesian. So I think you can bring him back a lot sooner and show me something with Madrimov. You guys let me know what you think. Ego thoughts, do I sound crazy, or does this sound like a good idea? For me, I think this is a great idea. But I need you guys to let me know in the comment section if I'm bugging, or if you agree with Ego thoughts that this could be a good springboard for Jaron Ennis, because we know he's good. It's just at this point a matter of seeing him fight someone elite who can rival him. Other than that, it's just going to be the same level of guy, and that doesn't really prove much. Let me know what you guys think. Subscribe to my channel, because I'm clearly the best in the business, and it's not even close.